I know this is a goat podcast, but I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you what we're doing with our cattle herd, because it's part of the same system, and the philosophy behind the decision is exactly the same philosophy that shaped our goat herd. Today I want to talk about why we're switching to Dexter cattle, how we got here, what we were actually evaluating when we looked at breeds, and why multispecies grazing is central to what we're building at Dry Creek. Let's get to it. Hey there, welcome to GoatWise. I'm Millie Bradshaw, animal scientist and rancher. Here we talk meat goats, feeding strategies, goat fencing, and livestock management that holds up in real life. If you care about raising goats well and building systems that actually work, you're in the right place. Let's talk livestock. If this podcast has been helpful, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Scroll down to ratings and reviews, tap the stars, and leave a few sentences. It helps more serious livestock producers find the show, and I read every one of them. Then go grab the free kidding due date chart at goatwise.com/kidding-chart. That also gets you on the insider email list. Link is in the show notes. Here's what's happening on the ranch. Early Saturday morning, we had our first Dexter calf born here at Dry Creek, a little red bull calf. That's the beginning of something we've been working toward for a while, and it's pretty exciting to see it actually happen. We're just about ready to take the goats out into areas without a goat-proof perimeter fence for the first time, on the virtual fence alone. I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous about it. The kids are freestyling right now, not staying close to their moms, just doing whatever they want, and they don't have collars on. So we're going to have 150 kids doing their own thing while the does and the livestock guardian dogs are confined to the virtual boundary. My hope is that when we move to an unfamiliar pasture, the kids will stay closer to their moms just because the environment is new. If not, we're going to have a learning experience and adjust our management system. Either way, it needs to happen this week. They need fresh pasture, and it's time. We are 1 week out from county fair. The kids are dialing in their projects and things are coming together. Ray has made real progress with his show steer. After months of consistent work, he finally got him to and from the barn without the tractor as an anchor. We may actually get this steer to the fair, and that did not seem possible just a month ago. All right, I want to talk about cattle today, and I want to start by addressing the obvious question. Why are we talking about cattle on a goat podcast? Since the rebrand at episode 101, we've been focused tightly on goats and their role in production agriculture and in regenerative systems, and that focus is important and it's intentional. But here's the thing. In agriculture, we can get hyper-focused on one thing and start thinking that's the silver bullet. I don't think goats are the silver bullet. I think they have a critically important role, and I think they need to fill a bigger role in the wider regenerative agriculture community than they currently do. But cows matter. Cows are important in this system, and they will likely always be a part of what we do here. Cattle prefer grass, goats prefer browse, weeds, shrubs, the things cattle leave behind. They're kind of on either end of the grazing spectrum, and they complement each other beautifully. They improve the land together in ways that either species alone cannot. I can't fully tell the story of what we're building at Dry Creek without talking about both. So yes, we're going to talk about cattle on this podcast because it's part of the system. Now, let me tell you how we got here. We built our original cow herd with bottle calves, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. It's how we got into cattle ownership without needing to buy an established herd outright, which we couldn't have afforded anyway. We raised those bottle calves up, and watching our first calves born here from heifers we'd raised ourselves on a bottle, that was something. But those calves grew up to be big cattle. They were what everybody around here raises, because that's what the buyers and feeders and packers want. Big-framed, high-producing animals. And they were too big for this environment. Too big and producing more milk than made sense for our system, requiring more feed than we wanted to or could carry. They didn't fit. So we knew we needed to make a change. We just didn't know yet exactly what that change was going to look like. We looked at a lot of breeds. Belted Galloways, lowline Aberdeen Angus, Scottish Highlanders, Red Devon, smaller framed Herefords and Black Angus, and after deciding we didn't want to change our herd by breeding the large size and extra milk out of them, we kept circling back to Dexters. But I want to tell you what we were actually looking for, because this was not a decision based on looks or novelty. Our criteria were hardiness and climate adaptability, forage efficiency, mothering ability, moderate milk production, fertility, meat quality and carcass consistency, ability to finish on forage, disposition, and versatility. That's a long list. I felt like I was looking for the perfect cow. I kind of was. Let's take Belted Galloways as an example of how we worked through this. They are very winter hardy. That double coat handles cold better than most breeds, and that's important here. But carcass quality was variable. The breeders I talked to in western Wyoming and north central Wyoming were telling me they had to bring in outside genetics, Red Angus or similar, just to get their carcass quality up. That's a fight I did not want to sign up for. When you've got a small herd and you're filling your own freezer plus the freezers of a few other families, you cannot afford to gamble on whether the meat quality is going to be good or not. You need to know. So Belted Galloways came off the list, not because they're a bad breed, they're a great breed, but because the consistency wasn't there in the genetic lines available to me locally, I decided to go a different route. I also want to say something about cattle size that I think is worth talking about because I've watched it play out right here in my county. Frame scores have been climbing for decades. We call it frame creep. Cows keep getting bigger, and fertility is dropping. The research and the producers who've looked hard at this show that as mature cow size increases beyond about 1,000 pounds, fertility and efficiency both begin to decline. It's a real trend. I've watched it happen in my own area. I didn't want to build a cow herd and be fighting that same battle that's probably only going to get worse until it puts ranchers out of business. Dexters checked nearly every box. They're an Irish mountain breed built for challenging conditions, and they're handling our summer heat and our altitude just fine so far. Mothering is something the Dexter community consistently brags about, and everything I've seen backs that up. As far as fertility and productive longevity, the smaller frame works in their favor, and Dexters tend to stay in production significantly longer than your typical commercial cow. Forage efficiency. Meaningfully less consumption than a full-size cow for the same functional output. And meat quality is well documented and remarkably consistent. I'll come back to that in a minute. Two things were holding me back before I committed. First, I didn't want a novelty or miniature breed, and my limited understanding of Dexters before doing any research was that the mini look was the standard. I didn't know there were a lot of Dexter breeders out there actively selecting against it. Chondrodysplasia, often called chondro, is a dwarfism mutation in cattle. One copy of the gene produces the short-legged, shorty look that a lot of Dexter people love. Two copies, when both parents are carriers, produces what's called a bulldog calf. Severely deformed, doesn't survive, usually aborted around 7 months. Now, there are some complications that come with managing that gene that we just did not want to deal with. But honestly, the most practical reason is this. If a neighbor's Angus bull ever jumps the fence and gets in with my cows, I don't want ugly calves. And I've seen what happens when a chondropositive cow gets bred by a standard bull. The calf has a normal size head, but the major bones are shorter, so everything looks disproportionate, just odd. Personally, I think they're ugly. Sorry if that's offensive. I didn't want that. So we went chondro negative across the board. Cows and bull all tested clear. Our calves will look like normal proportional red cattle, just smaller. From a distance, you'd think they were full-size red cows until you walk up and realize they're not. The other term you'll run into with Dexters is PHA, pulmonary hypoplasia with anasarca. Affected calves, sometimes called water babies, have underdeveloped lungs combined with severe fluid swelling, and they don't survive. It's recessive, so carriers look completely normal. You can only identify them through genetic testing. PHA negative means tested and confirmed clear. There's no upside to having PHA in your herd, so we only bought cows that tested negative. My other holdback was milk production. Though someday I do want to milk the Dexters, I do not want high-producing dairy cows. I don't want that much milk, and I don't want the metabolic problems that come with pushing for exceptional production. Dexters vary widely in milk production, so we tried to select cows that were on the lower end, and we'll breed carefully to keep it there or reduce it if we need to. Remember, lactation is nutritionally expensive, and that can increase forage consumption significantly, which is a bad fit for our low forage environment. What pushed me from research to decision was two things. First, the beef quality. Everybody who has Dexters raves about the eating quality, and I assumed that was just what Dexter people say. Then we got Dexter cross beef in our freezer this year, and I had a steak a couple of weeks ago that was exceptional. Rich, flavorful, tender. That confirmed what I'd been reading. In a 2019 blind tasting in the UK, Dexter beef beat out both Angus and Wagyu for flavor, tenderness, and overall eating experience. The reputation is real. Second was the community. I started reaching out to Dexter breeders, researching on breed association websites and social media, watching who was commenting on posts, sending DMs, and these people love their cows, and they are not gatekeeping. They want more people raising Dexters. They were open, helpful, and genuinely supportive, and nearly every one of them spent an hour of their time on the phone with me. I love finding that kind of community. That was the tipping point. So here's where we landed. We contracted on 2 bred cows and 2 yearling heifers. We bought 2 bull calves that aren't weaned yet. We've put a deposit down and we'll pick them up in the fall. And we contracted on a bull that we'll pick up next month. All red, all chondro negative, all PHA negative. Some are polled, some are dehorned. We've built ourselves a small Dexter herd. Now, here's what I keep coming back to and why I think this belongs on a goat podcast. This is the same decision we made with goats applied to cattle. When we started with commercial meat goats in 2019, we bought 22 head from a rancher 150 miles west of us, different climate, different conditions, and then 15 more from a rancher about 100 miles east of us with a more similar climate. We had a few boar dairy cross does in there too, so we started with 40 commercial goats, not really knowing what we were doing, but willing to learn and figure it out. That first year, we culled 10 out of 40 and kept 14 doe kids as replacements. And over the next few years, we completely stopped chasing herd growth and started chasing herd quality. We culled hard, we selected intentionally. We only have 4 of those original 40 goats left in the herd. Those are the ones who have produced year after year. We started with what we could get and what we could afford, and then we just kept breeding and culling toward what we actually wanted. Another big turning point came when we bought 40 Spanish does and 2 bucks out of Montana, the type of genetics we'd been working toward, and we brought in a cedar eater buck to use on the Bordeaux. We had stopped just producing babies and started working intentionally towards something specific. So we started with 40 goats in 2019, we purchased 40 more in 2022. We kidded 80 does this year. That's not explosive growth for 6 years of raising goats, but we have intentionally curated this herd, let go of does we loved that didn't fit, and this kidding season showed us what 8 years of that work looks like when it comes together. We didn't set out to be seed stock producers. We set out to build a herd that worked here, and those turned out to be the same goal. That's the model we're applying to cattle now. We sold the cows that didn't fit. We researched and bought cattle that we believe will match this environment and this system. We're not Dexter experts. We are brand new Dexter owners learning as we go. But we know how to do this process. We've done it with goats. The animal has to match the resources and the environment, not the other way around. I did a financial comparison episode a couple months ago, episode 107, Goats versus Cattle Based on Forage Equivalency, and running those numbers confirmed that we weren't crazy for wanting smaller cattle. The math supported what we already suspected about efficiency per unit of forage consumed. I'd encourage you to go back and listen to that one if you want the numbers. Saturday morning, we had our first Dexter calf born here at Dry Creek, a little bull calf. That's the beginning, and I'm really excited about where this is going. See you next week. Hey there, thanks for listening today. If this episode was helpful, share it with another producer who's raising goats. And if you haven't already, leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more serious livestock owners find the show. As always, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for veterinary advice. I'll see you next week here on GoatWise.